Dearest gentle listeners, you are listening to the Ladies Bridgerton, the talk of the ton. We are your effervescent hosts, your neighborhood-friendly Kiwi, Tash from Middle Earth, New Zealand.
And Patty, Regency romance enthusiast, currently writing her unapologetically audacious era.
Settle down onto your favorite settee as we delve into the lives of the elite and illustrious ladies, lords, and royalty of the ton. This Bridgerton podcast is two friends talking romance, symbolism, Easter eggs, and like my dentist this week, deep diving into the connections of her favorite characters. We cover both book, TV series, and notable social media, and therefore will contain spoilers.
Now, Tosh, do you know what time it is?
It is not time for my pod snacks.
Pod snacks.
Pod snackety
snackety
snacks. Today's pod snacks is sponsored by water because I cannot eat. I have just had my wisdom teeth removed 2 days ago, and apologies if my enunciation is not fantastic today because my tongue is still completely numb. My mouth is still in quite the state, and talking hurts considerably. So I am on the
sorrows, prayers.
I'm on the waters at the moment for my snacks because I tried to eat a softened blueberry muffin earlier and popped stitches. So I'm feeling considerably sorry for myself today.
Well, and the real sponsor of Pod Snacks today is Maria Medina.
Woo!
I hope I'm saying that correct, Maria, because I live near a town called Medina.
Yes.
Spelled the same way. But I did bring snacks. So I doubled up. I will not eat all of these during the podcast.
Please tell me that there is crunchy snacks because they said I'm at least 2 weeks away from being able to eat anything crunchy, and my life is so sad without the crunch. Like I live for the crunch. I'm so sad.
I'm low carb. So I did get one sweet treat, but it's tiny.
Is pork rinds
tiny? Oh, pork rinds are keto. Yeah, they're zero carbs.
And they're like
I had those last
crunch.
time.
Yeah.
But I went to, there's a gas station around us called Sheets, and they always have a lot of like little snacky things. And I got this little tiny turtle cheesecake. It's individual tiny thing.
Cute.
I got me a little thing of strawberries and some cheese and pepperoni because what we're talking about today. I've made sure I brought the cheese. And I got, for crunch, I got some protein chips.
I do have a snack that I could eat.
Pistachios. I haven't had pistachios in a long time, and I saw them and I was like, yes.
Do you guys have in America?
And I'm drinking Powerades.
In America, do you guys have, so we call it cow cheese, and obviously nearly all cheese is cow cheese, but it's
like most cheese is cow cheese.
Yeah, but it's very specifically, it's because it has a cow on the picture, and what it is it's a wheel.
Oh, laughing cow
in the
wedges. Yeah, yes. Laughing cow. Yeah, we have that.
I brought myself laughing cow, and I tried to eat it on the first day, but I couldn't actually get my teeth separated enough to get it in. And so I was trying to suction it into my mouth, which was like, but I can probably...
I'll tell you, if you get some really soft white bread and cut off the crust and smear that laughing cow, you're not at soft bread yet?
No. Even the muffin was too much.
That pretty much moistens.
Yeah.
With your you don't have a lot of saliva going on right now.
No. My mouth is it's feeling. So today's episode is probably going to be on the shorter side again, like the previous two. I mean, it's realistically not that short. It's still an hour 10, but my mouth is saying, please, minimal effort today.
Well, and I also want to say, like, the reason I got my sweet treat is because in our The Bridgerton Glow Up chat, it's a safe space for self-improvement. We started a walking challenge together.
Yes.
And a few of us we made a pact to walk at least 5 minutes a day. I actually walked 30 minutes today, which is why I was emboldened to get my sweet treat. Plus I have eaten very, very low carb up until today. I got fajitas. My friend Leah came and we went out to dinner and I got fajitas, and I let her take home the rice and beans and tortillas and everything, and I just ate the simmer plate, which is the meat and the vegetables, with the pico and the sauerkraut. So
I must
had
say,
that for dinner
I
earlier.
am very jealous of how many Mexican options there are in America. Like, I mean, New Zealand does have Mexican
There's
options.
4 in my town. 4 Mexican restaurants that I know of.
Many.
There's probably more.
We've got.
Oh no, there's Don Tequila's. There's another one.
We've got.
No, that's just my town.
Yeah, in Christchurch.
My town is not Christchurch. My town is smaller than Christchurch.
My town probably has a couple dozen, but Mexican food here isn't cheap. It's typically actually on the more expensive side as far as restaurants go. But it's because they do it well. Like they do. It's not cheap, easy comfort food. It's like go out with friends for tapas kind of food. Speaking of,
ours is cheap, except we went to the more expensive one today because it's on the square, and I've never actually gotten out of my car and eaten on the square, even though I have lived here now near Medina for a long time. And that's where she chose to eat, so that's where we went.
Today's episode is very inspired by food and cheese specifically.
Yes, so I'm going back to the intro. We continue on the spousal analysis that we were asked to do, except we're saving pollen for when we come to the end of season 3 episode analyses. So who might we be analyzing today, you ask? We shall be exploring, dear listeners, the Sultan of Stilton, the Enchantress of Cheddar, the sour, attention-seeking siren, and the opposite of alpha admirer, the Finches and the Dankworths. We love our Featherington bros and how devoted they are to their wives, so we wanted to honor their romance.
And talk about cheese.
Yes, and talk about cheese and eat cheese. It's Colby Jack, by the way, for me.
Nice. Now we must make haste into today's episode. So I think we kind of start at the groundworks, and I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how Archibald, which is Lord Featherington, OG Lord Featherington, and Portia's relationship kind of set the groundwork for the girls and how they started out in the marriage mart and how they obviously eventuated into the relationships that they did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were just talking about it, but a couple of things that I noticed without having gone back and rewatched season 1 to do this episode. I don't believe there is one time in that entire time that the girls approach Archibald at all, or that he utters a single word to them. I just don't think it happens. And I think that's interesting too. Like, I can't even think of a time when they're speaking to their mother that they honestly talk about their father until after he's dead. Like, I can't think of one time.
No. And so I think that they very much grew up. I think that they were shunned by their dad so much that it just was kind of like, you don't exist, I don't exist. We live in the same space, but like we don't acknowledge each other kind of a situation.
Well, I have a thought.
Just one?
Portia, well, no, I have many, but Portia and Archibald were a loveless marriage.
Yes.
That's what the girls grew up with. They don't know what love is. That's why Prudence acts the way she does with Dankworth.
Yeah.
But we know they live in separate rooms, separate bedrooms altogether. They only converse in his study with the door shut. Like, the girls don't even see them interact with each other, really. They don't even hang out together at the balls. So I think that, and we know that Lord Featherington is a little lascivious because he stares at Marina, who's very young, over his newspaper, and that I think that Portia kind of, I think she sees her husband with eyes wide open, and I think she has spent those girls' entire lives protecting them from him. Not necessarily that he would have done anything with his own daughters, but
Eloise,
seeing him like that, I could say, and she is super mama bear. She's not very loving. She's not very loving, but she is the survivor, and she is very protective of her girls.
I wonder whether
Penelope, but the other two.
I wonder if that's another reason why they were always at Bridgerton house and not Featherington, I wonder whether Eloise felt uncomfortable in the presence of Archibald because he's also not the kind who would ever tolerate a woman having an opinion as much as, I mean, yes, his wife is super opinionated and very headstrong in that, but she also knows her place and how to play Archibald. Like she knows how to play the role with him to keep that sort of peace between them, whereas Eloise doesn't give a crap about keeping peace. She will say her mind. And I think that he would,
Well,
one, leer at her, and two, absolutely
yeah.
hate her outspokenness and probably berate
Well,
her for filling his daughter's head with nonsense.
I don't think Eloise goes to
But
Featherington
that's what I'm
House all that
saying.
much because no, I know, but I don't think it has anything to do with him because he's rarely there. He's always at White's and he's gambling. We know she goes often enough that she gets to walk in, not get announced, and go straight up to Penelope's bedroom. She asked to be announced when she came the one time. That's because in her mind, they no longer are friends, right? But then later in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, episode 6, she just traipses in the house and goes straight up, walks in her room. There's no Penelope, you have a visitor. Penelope's had an announced visitor all the time, except Eloise just walks in the room then. So I think Eloise knows a secret entrance or goes into the service entrance. Like she's that kind of close of a friend with Penelope. Yeah. And I think she had to sneak in the house. I personally think Portia didn't allow too many people in the home. And that's why it was such a big deal in season 2 to have the ball there.
Yes.
I think Portia was embarrassed. I think Portia was embarrassed of Archibald. I think Portia felt shame for the life they were living. And the only way she could keep up pretenses that they had more than they had was to go out in public looking like they had more than they had and not allow anyone in.
At the home where you've got to have the candles and the servants and everything upkept to a standard, you can't hide as much.
And there's just so much more love at the Bridgerton house. And like we were saying, we were saying in our season 4 teaser YouTube video that the reason Sophie is kind of attracted and like the universe leads her to Bridgerton house is because as they're healing and as they're finding true love, the house that is a loving family just gains that much more love. And that house is bursting with love. And there's no love across the street. None.
Yeah.
It's like having a river and having this super abundant farmland, rich soil, and the other side just a plain old desert.
Let's talk a little bit about Philippa, because obviously she was the first one to experience love in that family. And I kind of wonder sometimes where her soft side comes from, because out of the 3 sisters, she has definitely got the softest nature. She definitely has some barbs to her. She's definitely got her mum's tongue. But she does have that very innocent Brittany Murphy-esque kind of simple.
I think because she's middle child. She's middle child. And I think like as I've been rewatching things, I think she's always had an admiration for Penelope. But Prudence's personality is just so because Penelope is quiet and Penelope wants to say snarky things, but isn't like her character gets caught between her vocal cords and her mouth, her heart and her mouth. Prudence doesn't think about what comes out of her mouth at all. She just says whatever. So her personality comes off stronger. Yes. And I think that Philippa is guilty by association. Not that she actually, I mean, if you look, they stand next to each other all the time, but they don't really talk that much until season 3. Yeah. Whenever you see the girls standing together, they're not talking to each other. They do not know how to interact or connect with each other. But we see Philippa has almost always had this affinity and affection for Penelope that she doesn't get to acknowledge until Portia does. I honestly, because then it's okay because Prudence like doesn't let her almost.
I thought it was like the ending of season 3 was beautiful because it felt like a full healing moment where you realize that Philippa didn't want her daughter to grow up like her mum or like her older sister. She wanted her to grow up like her younger sister. To be educated and outspoken and be able to speak her mind and have an opinion and like kind of, I mean, it is realistically Lady Whistledown is the best of all of her family in the fact that it's got Portia's wit, it's got Prudence's barbs. It's got some of, I mean, at times it does have some of Philippa's softness to the way that she writes, especially
Her
when,
naivete, yeah.
yeah, when writing about Miss Barrigan, she remembers to talk up the underdogs as well and to protect others. And, the way that she uses the Whistledown article when writing about the husband I presume the undertone of what she was saying was that he was hitting his wife or mistreating her, that she uses it to protect others and it becomes a whole thing. So I think having Philippa realize all the good that her sister is and wanting her daughter to grow up like that was such a full circle moment for me, that she's finally the first one in her family to see Penelope not as a money maker, not as a way to skyrocket her in society. She just saw her as, you are someone that can inspire my daughter. And I thought that was really beautiful because it wasn't about the money. It wasn't like Prudence
No.
is, oh, this can elevate me in society. For Portia,
I think she
I want your
always
money.
admired I think she always admired Penelope for her cleverness and her
Yes.
intelligence, and she just couldn't show it because Prudence wanted all the attention. Because even thinking back to like episodes 1 and 2 of the first season, I don't even really think that Portia acknowledges Philippa all that much. I think Philippa is just as invisible because her focus is on Prudence.
Mm-hmm.
She's got to get Prudence married off. This is Prudence's third season, which we don't hear the word spinster in season 1,
Nope.
but it is Prudence's third season, which we know from interviews.
Yes.
We know that Prudence has been out before the other girls.
The bloody scowl, I'll tell you that.
This is Philippa's first season, but then Portia's like, I'm not doing this again next year. Come on, Penelope, you're coming with.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that she
Which was a massive faux pas.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw how Lady
it's like putting your child on the auction block.
You saw
really,
how Lady Catherine de Bourgh acted in Pride and Prejudice, that that Lizzie was out the same time as the sisters. Like it was sacrilegious. It was like, shame on you and your family for bringing such embarrassment onto the ton. Like this is not how it's done. You do things the way that it's supposed to be done. Which is why people didn't like having multiple daughters, because to have multiple girls out is expensive, it's hard, it's draining, it's a lot.
And that's why I equate Portia to Mrs. Bennet so much, because Mrs. Bennet had a huge problem on her hands. In fact, like, tiny tangent here. I saw a TikTok.
Tiny tangent.
I, of course, on TikTok follow Pride and Prejudice stuff. So yes. I saw an interview with Brenda Blethyn, who played Mrs. Bennet in the 2005 version.
Yeah.
Where people were like,
side tangent. Did I see they're making a new Pride and Prejudice?
What?
I think I saw somewhere that they're making a new one.
What?
A new Pride and Prejudice.
I know. I'm like, what? Find it.
I'll
I need to know this. I need to know all the things.
I think Netflix.
They might be. I think they might be. Yeah, didn't they just announce their cast?
Yes, Netflix is producing a new 6-part limited series adaptation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, written by Dolly Alderton and directed by Euros Lynn. The series will star Emma Corrin as Elizabeth Bennet and Jack Loudon as Mr. Darcy.
Yeah, I remember they casted the Darcy and the Bennet. But Brenda Blethyn, who was Mrs. Bennet, like, I guess a lot of people prior to her beginning production were like, oh, aren't you just going to struggle playing her? Like, she's such a, she's like a whiny character. She's like, this, that, or the other thing.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see her as Lizzie.
But Brenda Blethyn was like, no, Mrs. Bennet has a huge problem to solve.
Yeah.
And no one takes her seriously. Not her husband, not even her children. They do not see the seriousness of their situation. Only she does. And that's how she went into play Mrs. Bennet. And I think that's why she comes off with so much more heart and feeling than the actress who played Mrs. Bennet in the 1995 version, which she was still good too. She totally played it up like
Jack
she wants and seeks all this attention.
He was a little bit old. He's a year older than me, so he's 35. Mm-hmm. But then again, Matthew
McFadden older.
Would have been about that age at the time.
Yeah.
But then Lizzie was,
I think
like,
in the book,
18,
I think Lizzie was 21 or 22. No, Lizzie was 21, 22 in the book. And because remember her younger sisters were
Yeah.
out, all
Yeah.
three of them,
Yeah.
and that you can't be out until you're
Kitty
16.
Kitty was
Well,
only
Lydia
16.
was
Lydia,
Lydia
sorry.
was not yet 16. She was
Yes.
close.
Yeah.
But she was out that season because she was almost 16, I think.
Yes.
So,
but it was also very shameful that she was out because she really
so
shouldn't
she
have
was
been.
like 21 or 22. I know Jane was like 24 in the book. So I think Darcy in the book was at 30, like, which was normal back then for a man to be older. You know, 30 to 35 and seeking a wife that's 19 to 20 something years
rate
old.
a age gap, because I tell you what, it takes men that much longer to mature than us. Okay, so yes, Portia is very, very much Mrs. Bennet. And I think they actually go through a lot of the same struggles. The only difference being is that Mrs. Bennet and Mr. Bennet were, I believe, a love match, even though she was a tedious sort of character. I think he loved his wife dearly.
They were a love match that, and there's 3 different versions, and I love that that's what you can do with Pride and Prejudice. In the book, they read as 2 people that got together for love because they couldn't control themselves. So rather than possibly ruining her, they got married. And they probably got married a little early before they really knew each other. So over the years, they're more antagonistic, and they're like, it's not a truly loving situation. I don't read the way I read the book. It's not like that.
He loves his wife and he loves her as a mother, but as a person, he finds her tedious.
Tedious and
grating on the nerves.
Very silly. But I love how Donald Sutherland played him, that he loves her and he just finds her silliness adorable. Like, that's how it comes off to me. Donald Sutherland, R.I.P. You were by far my favorite Mr. Bennet.
What, is he dead now?
Yeah, he died.
Oh, that's sad.
I'll look that up. I know you'll want to know.
I do. I like the facts. I find that he seemed as though he knew all of his wife's flaws and was aware of them and could understand why his daughters were tired of them. But at the same time, he's like, this is my person, and we love our people with and without their flaws. Oh, that's sad. Yeah.
He died the day before we recorded our first pod.
Oh, so I do feel like he played the character really well, that like he's aware of his wife's flaws, but he loves her despite them. Like, and that's true love, is loving someone, knowing their flaws and loving them through them anyway, even if it's not your vibe, you know, that you can be so different. And I think that's why they moved to the country, is they were kind of both eccentric. And I think that's the difference between Portia and Mrs. Bennet, is Portia's personality would be completely at home in the country, where she wouldn't have to maintain such a high standard that she's she wants that elevation. Is that a movie or is it just a saying, keeping up with the Joneses?
There is a movie, and I think it has David Duchovny and Téa Leoni in it.
Okay.
I think.
But
at least Téa Leoni, I think, is in it. It is a phrase. It's a turn of phrase.
So like she very much has this ideal of keeping up with the Joneses and keeping. I think it is because they're so new to the ton, is that she feels like she has something to prove. But the funny thing is, or the ironic thing is that the more she tries to prove it, the more she kind of does the opposite and proves exactly why she's still got so much to learn in the ton. And I think that Penelope taking over the mantle, and this is one of the other things I was going to say about Prudence, is even though Prudence and Philippa were fighting over who was going to become the mum of the new lord, I think that they're both going to realize how much better suited that Penelope is to the role with Colin by her side, and that realistically
I don't even think they're thinking twice about it now. I think Prudence was like, I can't believe you had the boy. No, but after that, I think,
can you imagine like Philippa actually having to manage anything? And I mean, we love him dearly. He is our be all and all stan of the season, our little Finchy. But Finch is not cut out to be father of a lord. Like, Will has he can manage his business, he's managed his family, he knows how to be the man of the house. And that's not to say toxic masculinity, but I think everyone has different strengths, and Finchie has so many such wonderful strengths, but being the man of the house isn't necessarily what I would call a strength of his. What
Well,
his strength is going to be is teaching his children that men don't have to be this toxic, masculine, sex crazed drinker.
there's masculine without gambling, without
Yes.
whites, without all of
Yes.
that.
Like,
But like I think I honestly don't think that Finch or Dankworth themselves
I think they both hate it.
were, well, no, I think they weren't even a part of that. Like they did not care.
No.
And I think the only person who truly cared was Portia, and she knew that. And
No,
she,
I
the only
think
thing,
Prudence did because she wanted her mum's approval.
she wanted to win. I
Yeah.
think that it was more about her mother's approval than it was about actually having the heir and having the riches or the estate, because there's no riches behind it. I honestly think like there's riches behind it now because of the Whistledown money, because Penn is the mother of the heir.
Mm-hmm.
But Portia is terrible with money. So, you know, like Lord Featherington gambled everything away. Portia defrauded the ton, and then she spent like a madwoman. And if you really pay close attention throughout the season, servants disappear. Like they
Yes.
had 10 servants on their stairs at the beginning of the season when you see Portia spending money hand over fist. But then all of a sudden, there's only Varley and there's only Ray.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
Ray goes with Penelope to the new house. So she's back to only Varley.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. And it's because she sucks with money.
Yes.
And I don't think the girls really cared about having the heir and taking over the estate because they've only seen it as a burden. It's been a burden to Portia. It's been a burden to Archibald. It killed their father. Like, look at, from their perspective, they didn't know everything their dad was into.
No.
So they look at the responsibility of the lordship as what killed him. And, you know, they only know this toxic survival mode mother. And I mean, she's clawing her way to keep them in the ton. She wants what's best for her kids, but protecting your kids can also hurt them. Like
Yes.
if you're not protecting them in positive ways, like she's trying her best to protect them, but she's doing it the only way she knows how. And because I don't think she had a Mayfair upbringing.
I mean,
I think they came in. I think the Featherington title was entailed. I think Archibald got it because somebody else died.
I think
they just have that feeling about them.
They feel like they were very new to the ton, and it feels like that they were the first ones. From what I can kind of gather, it seems like they were the first ones to inherit that title with how society treats them. But I don't understand how. But Archibald
I
is
think he's
Weasley.
an entail. I think he's an entail. I think they were not of the ton. And that's why he comes that's why he is attracted to the kind of like, think about Lord Danbury in Queen Charlotte. And when they first got their title and how he insisted being able to get into whites and having all the I think that Archibald was just as attracted to that, but he went down the rough road because I think they had more of a rough. Now I think they got the title before the girls were old enough to remember any other life, but I think they're entails because Jane Austen was snarky as all get out about how people who have generations behind their title treat people who come in with an entail. So I think they were entailed. I think Archibald was entailed. He inherited because whoever died and he was the first male relative, you know, that the next in line, kind of like Will and Alice's son. But they were already adults when it happened, and they're rough around the edges, and they're more brash and stuff like that. So I don't think Archibald or Portia grew up with a gentle upbringing, a gentle breeding.
I think they grew up in the well, but adjacent to it.
No, I think they grew up in Cornwall. Portia talked about Cornwall.
What I mean is, like, they didn't grow up in poverty, but I don't think they grew up in wealth of any sort. I think they probably had like maybe a servant at most, like kind of more along the lines of the Bennett.
Yeah, well, I don't even think they were totally the Bennets. I think they were more like if you watch Mansfield Park, because there's three sisters. One marries a titled person. She was the beauty of the three. Another sister was also very beautiful, but she chose to marry for love, and she ended up with a poor man, and they live in I think it's Cornwall. They're in a port town, and they have a million kids because they love each other and they can't keep their hands off each other. But now she's tired, she's worn out, she's old, and she ends up sending her smartest kid to go live with the rich family members. They foster her basically. She becomes their ward because that's one less mouth to feed because they're struggling. That her husband is like sick or whatever he is, he's just not working anymore, and she's trying to make ends meet and do all the things. So she lets one of her children go that she thinks will have the best chance being brought up in that environment. So she sends Fanny. And I think that Portia was the Fanny type because she's so clever and she's so smart that I think she grew up in more of that cornball kind of lifestyle.
I feel like Portia is both smart but not intelligent. So she is incredibly cunning. She is very good at manipulation, but she is not to me book smart. She is just good at manipulating. And that comes from growing up in a toxic household where you learn those survival skills. So I do wonder whether her dad was very in line with how Archibald is as well. And that's how she's learned that fight or flight. You know, and she was saying about how she's, you know, love matches are so rare.
Well,
I very much
growing
doubt
up
that.
in
I don't think her parents
growing up
had
in
love
poverty. Growing up in poverty, you learn your resources and you learn how to use.
Yes.
I think that Portia learned. She's very street smart, and I think that I kind of hope they bring that out, especially in season 4 with Sophie, that we see Portia, you know, a little bit more of her backstory or her being more open about what. Now that all her daughters are married off and she doesn't have to pretend to be anything she's not.
Question. Realistically speaking, if we were going to get a side story, we likely would have gotten it already, or at least had it be. So it's very unlikely that we're going to get a, what do you call it? A part 2. Not that I thought we would ever get a part 2 of and I couldn't even take a part 2 of Queen Charlotte, to be honest. Like, that's just too much for my nerves. But I don't think we're going to get a split season like we did last year, which is kind of a little bit disappointing because if you're making us wait 2 years, we were okay waiting the 2 years if we got some sort of content in between. Whereas now they're making us wait longer and we're getting nothing in the middle. And it feels like a bit of a ripoff, to be honest.
Well, and I think that because there was multiple people working on it before, because Shonda herself and Julia Quinn wrote the whole script for Queen Charlotte. Like Jess Brownell had nothing to do with Queen Charlotte, and I don't think Chris Van Dusen did either.
No, he didn't.
That was completely produced separately from the Bridgerton franchise. And I mean, Jess Brownell's not wrong. Bridgerton, with all of the costumes and the sets and coordinating, because you have to contact these properties and you have to work around their schedules, actor schedule, all that. Like it. And then editing and everything else. Oh, and we do know Bridgerton news. I saw this week. I saw a podcaster or a TikToker was interviewing Julia Quinn at one of her signings.
Yeah.
And she said she's seen the first 2 episodes of season 4.
Oh, interesting.
And she said they're really good. She's seen them, which means 2 episodes are at least at a stage where they're showing them.
Yes.
So they're in editing and they're getting the polish. So I hope y'all pick good music.
I hope y'all don't give us Wigbet part 2. Please, for the love of God, let there be no Wigsgate this season. We can't take it. It was horrible.
Well, and that's just because of the hairstyle that Luke Newton had for the shape of things.
Yeah.
And then having to come back for reshoots.
Yeah.
And it's still possible we might have to have reshoots, but
please
I think Luke Thompson kind of wears his hair the same
year round
as Benedict.
Yeah.
I mean, and when he does acting, like stage acting and stuff, he tends to do Shakespeare, which allows for a little more tousled hair on a man. I think it lends to that.
But, you know, one person I'm actually a little bit surprised that we haven't seen in the Bridgerton universe who would have suited being a Bridgerton really well is like the Kit Haringtons of it all, or even he played the brother in Game of Thrones, and he played,
what's his last name, Bean, the one who dies all the time in like every show he's
and he also played the prince in the Cinderella.
He was in Lord of the Rings. That guy, the guy from Lord of the Rings who died,
no,
the orcs kill.
No, he's too young for that. He was in Cinderella
Which Cinderella?
with
The
this
one with the
Lily James.
okay, the one with the cousin from Downton Abbey. Okay.
Richard Madden. Richard Madden to me looks a bit Bridgeny,
Yeah,
like a
he
bit.
looks
He
at
would
least a cousin, right?
like he would suit. I could see him as a suitor. Like he could have made a really
Yeah.
fantastic Michael.
Yeah.
That would have been chef's kiss for a Michael. But in saying that, because obviously John is black, there are so many amazing actors down that route. I really, 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 really wish we got a black actor with a Scottish accent because that would have been. I mean,
I'd watch that.
I think those are pretty few and far between pickings, but I'm sure it's out there. Like I'm sure there are black people with Scottish accents out there.
Or that can do one, because there are
Yes.
just some people like Nicola Coughlan who are good at
Who,
accents.
yeah, just phenomenal with their vocal skills. I completely
Yeah.
forgot who was I watching recently? Oh, Rose, someone. She played iZombie, the TV series iZombie.
You're acting like I watched
It was a really good
Rose
series.
Byrne. Is she older or younger?
Rose McIver. She's younger. She'd be a few years older than me. She's also recently she was in The Lovely Bones, iZombie, Ghosts, A Christmas Prince. She's in heaps of Christmas movies. I completely forgot that she was Australian. Sorry, a Kiwi. And she was on Jimmy Fallon recently, and she was talking about how she hates the Kiwi accent. And I'm like, I never even realized that you were Kiwi because in iZombie, she has an American accent and she just goes so fluidly between. But like a Kiwi accent is obviously so discernible when we do speak.
Well, we've really a lot.
Yeah, that's not
So
bad.
Philippa. So
Philippa.
Philippa. I think that and if you break down Philippa's courtship, it's very similar to Penelope.
Yes.
Because Finch comes out of nowhere
I love
and
their
states
meeting.
his intention.
I love their first meeting.
I know, I
It's
love that
so
he just
pure.
walks in with the flowers. He just walks in with the flowers and he's like, I'm here for, they're like thinking it's for
Yes.
Marina. And he's like, no, I'm here for Miss Philippa Featherington. And she just lights up.
And like, there's so many people out there who, like, because realistically, like, Philippa is a knockout beauty. Like, I think they really, really, really downplay it in Bridgerton. And I mean, makeup and hairstyles.
Oh, they upplayed it in season 3. Like,
they did.
she was
She was
beautiful.
a knockout. And this might sound a little bit funny, but I actually find her style in Bridgerton actually suits her more than her personal style in real life, where she's a little bit more grungy. But I actually think that really hyper feminine, the swishes and the swirls, and less flat hair, and that kind of black style that washes.
They gave her super tight hairstyles with the super pin curls in the front too. Like yes. Penelope had a lot of the pin.
Yes.
And they gave her that as well. And I think if we look back at the styling, we will see that Philippa and Penelope are very similar.
Yes.
And although they made her Philippa and gave her that like kind of daft personality of Philippa in the book, because Philippa couldn't catch on either. Like, yes. Come on, Penelope, come walk with me in the garden.
But right? was it that remind me, Philippa was married to.
But I think Philippa was married to Berbrook in the
book. Berbrook was a bumbling idiot in the books. He wasn't.
Idiot, yeah, idiot.
He wasn't nasty. He was just loud and stupid.
He was a dolt. Like if you ever look up dolt, it will be Nigel Berbrook from the is a dolt.
Yeah, he was the kind that would shout out in a crowd and make an idiot of himself. And Prudence's husband was
Philippa comes off as a little bit Felicity in that she does have a kind of closeness to Penn. She's not antagonistic with Penn really.
Occasionally, but more in that sister Bob kind of way.
And more in that usually at a time when Prudence.
Yes. It's tacking on.
If you look back,
she's
at the beginning.
I think the only time I ever see her actively antagonize her sister is when the Lady Whistledown article, but that's also kind of like just like a look, your boyfriend's in the too. You know, your boyfriend's in the article today.
I don't think
that's such a sister thing to do.
I don't think she's being snarky at all. I think she knows
It's
Penelope
teasing.
has a
I
crush
think
on
it's
her.
teasing.
I think she thinks Colin has a crush on her. Like, I think
Yeah.
so many people in the ton think they're secretly engaged. I think Portia's blind. But I think Philippa knows. And I think that was Philippa's moment of observation. Like, she lets it out and she lets it be known that she thinks this is the case. Like, oh, you're Mr. Colin Bridgerton is mentioned.
Yes. And then the other time is when she said, you're not even in the race to be the heir of the mama. That was a bit of a meaner bar, but I think that was definitely born out of like she's already getting it from every which side from Prudence. She's like, I don't need you even thinking you're in the race. Like this is too much. Slow your roll.
But I think that Philippa, much like her mother, reads the room, unlike Prudence. Prudence doesn't read the room, she just says.
Yes.
I think Philippa reads the room and she aligns herself with who appears to be the most powerful at the moment. And that's why we see her aligning with Penelope more as the episodes go on.
Yes.
Not so much like not an alliance, but her vibe aligns with the person who holds the most power in the room. And when Prudence is at her height of putting Penelope down, Philippa slides towards Prudence. But as Penelope comes into her power in the later part of the season, she slides that way.
Because if you align yourself with where the power is, it means that it's not going to be aimed at
safe.
you. Yeah.
And that is what their mother taught them. That is how she is in the ton. She aligned herself with Lady Cowper and Lady Keswick in the beginning. And her whole sole goal from the time we meet her in season 1 until Colin and Penelope get married is align with the Bridgertons, align with the Bridgertons, align with the Bridgertons, because they have the power.
It is.
I mean, even like
I'm actually surprised, not surprised, but surprised is that Cressida and Prudence never actually became frenemies because they are actually very, very similar girls. Both Araminta and Portia were friends and they would have been out at roughly the same time. But I do believe that Araminta would have seen Prudence as a step back for her daughter to be hanging out with because she would have considered her a spinster for being on the marriage mart for 2 years before Cressida was even on the mart. So she would have been like, do not align yourself with Prudence. She's already been on the mart for 2 years. If you align yourself with her, people will also put you in the spinster bucket of like, do not touch that spoiled meat. So I think if the mother
Cressida only talks to other debutantes that were the same year, that were presented the same year as her. Like she talks to Penelope rudely. She talks to Daphne snarkily, but like, hey,
cordially,
we're supposed to be friends
competitively. Yeah,
we're friends. Why are you stealing my man? Kind of thing.
Yes. Whereas I think that Cressida, it's kind of done almost like in year levels where like you can only mix with your own year level and everyone else is like, okay, you're already soiled meat. Don't mix. So I think if Portia and
it's like high school, like seniors. Like, oh my God, you want to date a freshman? What is wrong with you?
And so I think that if they didn't have the influence of Araminta and Portia, I actually think that the two would have made really great frenemies because they would have been competing with each other. They're actually quite similar in ways of looks. They both have height. They both have very very strong features, both beautiful in their own ways, but very discernible features, very strong barbs, not the intelligence behind the barbs, but they've got the barbs down. I actually think that they would have made pretty decent friends, but their competitive natures would have forced them apart.
Oh yeah. I think those would be the two. If they would have been friends, they would have been like,
they're actually very similar characters. People compare Cressida and Penelope because of the Lady Whistledown thing, but I actually think that Prudence is far more like Cressida than Penelope.
Well, and I think that Penelope created a character and her Lady Whistledown started out with what she heard around her. And a lot of that
I think it was inspired by her family.
Snark. Yes.
Because she would have had two years of her sister being on the marriage mart and coming home and, oh, this girl wore that. And, oh, that girl made an embarrassment of herself. That girl dropped her fan in front of the guy that she was courting. And that's how she would have initially been getting these snippets of information is her older sister coming home and saying about the balls that she'd been attending.
Well, Lady Whistledown came out the first year Penelope came out. So
that's what I'm saying. So she had 2 whole years of getting information from her sister about how the ton worked before she went into the ton herself.
Right. and listening, because she listens and observes very well, listening to her mother and things like that. And I'm assuming that Araminta showed up to the house at least.
I would presume.
But I think that we see a lot of Penelope's growth through Lady Whistledown, because season 1, she is more snarky. She names names, and I think she's Penn's naivete mixed with Prudence's snark. And but coming into season 2, she veers away from her own home, because where she was becoming successful, she was seeing how people were shocked at what Whistledown was saying.
I'm just gonna go fill out my water because I need to stay
gargle.
damp.
I got you, boo. So yeah, I think in season 2 she kind of started championing, seeing her power, seeing how she could use Whistledown, and that's where we see her more like her mother, that she's using Whistledown for power, but then she saw how that power hurt the people she loved. So I think season 3's Whistledown is the true, real Penelope. That's who she wanted to be. Like, she does not want to be like her mother. She doesn't want to be like her sisters. A sister, at least, but both sisters. So we see a very different Whistledown in season 3, because she realizes
to find your footing. Like, even look at how we started out the podcast, 30-minute episodes, trying to rush through things. It wasn't that it wasn't aligned with what we wanted to do, but as we have found our people, found our niche, we've gone more in detail with everything. The episodes have gotten longer, and we've changed things up so many times from where we started. And it's just because you've got to start somewhere, because if you just don't start, it's never going to start. So it's never going to be exactly as you want it on your first. So she kind of, I think it's like trying on shoes, like Cinderella. She tried on her sister's shoes, she tried on her mum's shoes, and then she tried on Philippa's shoes, and none of these shoes quite fit. This is the shoe that fits me. And that was the end of season 3, was when she started using Lady Whistledown to protect the women of the Ton, while still giving out the gossip, while still elevating those who needed some elevation.
And I think my metaphor is the marriage mart. You're still with the protection of your parents, but you're getting out in the world and you're seeing how life is different outside of your own house. It reminds me of college. I always said college was like the purgatory of childhood to adulthood.
Yes.
Like you had this like moment of safety where you could practice being an adult without actually having to be an adult. And for a lot of us who thought that what we grew up in was completely normal, we go through a shock and find out that what we grew up in is not normal, and not everybody does things the way that we were raised. And that's when you learn how to connect with people, get along with people. You learn from people, you learn about their backgrounds and how they were raised, and you start shaping and forming your own identity. Like the child I was, the person I was growing up in my household was completely different from the person I became making friends with. And yes, I'm going to start naming names. Trinice, Jen, I'm still going to say Smaug. I mean, there's so many people. Delina, if they ever listen to the pod, they'll hear their name at least once. Debbie, Joey, there's so many people I met during college that shaped me and helped me become the person that I am, because I learned from their experiences that there are different ways of living in the world. And I think that was Penelope. When she first started writing Whistledown, she only knew of one way to live, which was the way she was raised. And then over time, she starts, as she's observing the Ton, as she's seeing all of these real lives happen around her, she's learning from them and she's shaping who she wants to be.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's also that it's just, as we talked about how Archibald and Portia, when you've grown up with something and it's all you've ever known, obviously it does, we've talked about, has synapses and whatnot are formed. It's all she's ever known and all she's ever seen. And yes, she has been over at the Bridgertons, but I believe that in this timeline, Edmund was dead before she knew. So she didn't even get to see the love story.
She had the remnants of it. That she was around when Edmund was. I think she entered the picture after Edmund passed.
So she didn't even get to experience. She only saw the after effects of how much it can hurt when you love someone that much, and the hole that it can leave in your family. And I think I do wonder whether when she lost her dad, whether she felt that jealousy of how different it was to lose Edmund and how much it affected the Bridgerton siblings, as opposed to realistically, her losing her dad was just a financial, well, I mean, like a logistical
He
nightmare
didn't
for
connect
them. It was a
emotionally. He didn't connect emotionally.
it was a logistical loss, not an emotional one at all.
Right.
And so I think that I honestly think that outside of book, that watching Philippa and Finchy fall in love was her first experience of seeing true love in the woodworks happen super organically, like a culture of a cheese.
Like culturing cheese over time. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
gotta age. It's gotta age.
And
And I'll say this
I
as we're getting into their
I'm
actual
so sad we're
partnership.
not going to get to watch their aging process
Be
because,
parents. I want
like,
to see them be mommy and daddy so
honestly,
much.
looking in the background of season three, like there's so many times now, because obviously we're going through and we're doing the deep dive now. And so every single scene we go through and we look in the background now of, hey, what's going on? Because there's actually a lot more in the background than what people realize. And if you look in the background of basically any image where Penelope is, if the Dankies and the Finches are there, the Finches are always just being truly, authentically their silly string cheese
My my
mates.
favorite.
They are
Yes,
silly.
my favorite
They
scene.
are silly string cheese. That's what they are.
One of my favorite romantic scenes, and it's such a little minuscule one because nobody talks about the romantic scenes of the side stories really.
Yes.
One of my favorite romantic scenes of the entire series, all 4 seasons, is at the beginning of season 3 when Portia's reading the whistle down, finding out about Will and Alice and their son. And they do that pan-in shot from like the ceiling over the whole drawing room of Featherington drawing room.
The hand holding.
You see that their arms are across the settee and they are
Yes.
feathered together holding hands. And
Yes.
I'm like, that's the first physical affection that's
Yes.
been in that home. I
Yes.
love it.
And I honestly think that, like, people talk about how influential Lady Whistledown is, but we also underestimate how influential it was for that entire family. Philippa set something new in motion for that entire family, that it is okay to be loved. It is safe to be loved. You can have a man on your arm who is not going to try to change you, who is just going to allow you to be authentically yourself and will love you despite your flaws. Because that is, we got that with Bennett, but we did not get that with Archibald and Portia. I think he did actually appreciate his wife being stronger because he was a weak man. And I think he needed someone to take the reins when obviously he went too far.
Oh, and you just said it the perfect way. He was okay with Portia being strong because he's a weak man. And Portia has this assumption over men about what is strong and what is weak.
Yes.
And she views both Finch and Dankworth as weak men, but they're really strong men because
I think she
they
grows to
love
appreciate them
and adore their wives.
Yes.
Like Dankworth adores Prudence. He acts like she is the straight up son. And Finch he seriously is opening a box of cheese cubes every day. Like his little chocolate box is like
life is like a box of cheese.
To him.
You never know what kind of cheese you're gonna get.
She is food to him. Like as much as Portia says, your wife is the pastry, right? Your wife is the pastry. I think Finch is like, my wife is not
the cream
that fluff.
Thank you.
She is cheese. She is chocolate. She is the most decadent, delicious, satisfying thing on this planet. Like he loves and adores his wife. And neither of those men come off as weak. And people call them weak, but they don't come off as weak to me at all.
I think that each one of them brought Portia a different facet of healing because she got to see the different roles that men and women can play in relationships and how they can each strengthen each other and grow from each other. And that is the sign of a good marriage, is when you get someone who is not necessarily your exact, but someone who pushes you in the areas that you need to be pushed. Philippa, she needed someone to believe in her intelligence. She needed someone to think that she was intelligent and to see her worth. And that is exactly what Finchy did. Prudence needed someone who could see the soft side to her, who could see past that hard facade.
Who could see her feminine.
Who could see her feminine and allow her to be the strength that she needed to be whilst supporting her like it wasn't like Portia and Archibald where he only ever used her strength when he was failing, but instead with Danky and Prudence, I think they lean on each other a lot more and see those strengths in each other. And I think that each time one of her daughters have been married off and she sees the different roles that men and women can play together, I think she sees that it doesn't have to be the way that she thought it is. A man's in charge, a woman is just there to lead the strings from behind, but the men have all the power, because that's not how it is in the new generation of Featherington bros. It's a partnership finally, and I think that it's really healing for Portia to see that marriage is a partnership, not two soldiers going up against each other, because that's essentially what her and her husband were. They were never fighting the same war.
No, never fighting the same war. And I think that as you're talking about it, and I recorded a video for our Patreon subscribers today, and kind of going through and remembering the scene where Portia is talking to Varley after she gets the dressing down from Colin Bridgerton.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the theme of mirrors, and how every conversation that occurs in front of a mirror, every time somebody says something in front of a mirror, they are saying something really about themselves, even if they're talking about somebody else. But I think in this mirror moment, Portia is being very vulnerable. And she says love matches are so rare, like even for, girls like Penelope. And I think she really is feeling how she was that girl. And she chose security,
yes,
over love. And I think that a lot of this season, her talking Finch down, her talking Dankworth down, her calling them barely men, her saying that you expect, women to make babies and stuff like that. All of her remarks are jealous.
Yeah, I can see
She is
that.
jealous that her daughters found love.
Yeah.
Now, Prudence doesn't know what to do with it, and it takes her a lot longer. And I think that's because she's had the most exposure to Portia.
Yes.
But watching Philippa be openly loved and adored by her husband, and then watching Colin openly love and adore Penelope, I think it's very hard for her. I think she went through a period of jealousy.
Like, imagine.
But she couldn't put Colin down because he told her, "Don't you dare say another disparaging word about me or my wife."
Laughing with just the heart, not the face.
I'm trying not to make any of
Yes, we are minimizing the funnies for the day. Sorry, because I smiling, laughing, opening my mouth, anything more than this is incredibly painful for me right now. I think people talk about season 3 being obviously pollen season, and it is, but I think that I think for me it's the Featherington season.
I think it's a Featherington season.
Because realistically, and it's crazy to me that we won't have the Featheringtons back next season.
Sorry, Colin Bridgerton.
Sorry, you thought you were going to be losing out to you thought that Anthony was the king of the house.
You were the season lead. You thought you were the season lead of your season.
I honestly think
the Featherington family. And
I honestly think that the way that the courtship happened between Finch and Philippa was the most authentic, genuine, just sweetest courtship that we see in all of. It had the least problems. The problems that came to them were absolutely Jack and
we can't get married because you have no dowry because there's no.
That's what I'm saying. Their issues were never ever their issues. It was never an issue of their affection or love or you're not good enough for me.
And he remained devoted.
Yeah, they
could have walked off. He could have said after Archibald died,
yes,
and she would have had to go into a year of mourning.
I think he would have
question about a male heir and where the money was.
I think he would have said to his parents, "I'm marrying that girl with or without a dowry. That is my girl." And I honestly think that is kind of what happened, because I don't think they ever actually got any dowry. I think that he married her.
No, I think they wanted the dowry because he said, "I want to marry her. I don't care about a dowry."
Yes,
but they kept harping about a dowry.
Yes,
because they knew he was gonna. I think the Ton knew more about the Featherington house than Portia wanted them to know.
Yeah.
And I think they knew that there was probably not much money there, and they were desperate to make sure they got the dowry because that's the only way. Because they had the title, but I don't think they had a lot of money.
No, I would say that they're pretty low on the totem pole. Like, I would say that they were potentially even lower than the Featheringtons or around the same mark.
And as I said, think lower, Mom.
I think I think that the
The
Featheringtons maybe had
Featheringtons
a nicer
lived
home.
on the square, on
Yes,
Grosvenor
that's what
Square.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think the Featheringtons had a nicer home, but that was all, as I said, keeping up with the Joneses. It was all appearances. They might have necessarily had more flow
I
of
don't think it
money.
I don't think it originally was keeping up with the Joneses because families have their estates. I think
Yeah.
the family had at one point, kind of like the Marches in
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Little Women.
Yeah.
Aunt Josephine still has all of her money, but Mr. March made bad investments and
Squandered.
he
Yeah.
lost a lot of his. So because of being transcendentalist and giving away money and things like that. So I think the Featheringtons with their vices and things and her propensity for wanting to fit in and wanting to look like they had a lot. It was about looking like they had a lot, like that they squandered their money.
Yeah.
So I think they are on the level of the Finches, but the Finches think they're a higher level because of where their home sits.
Yes.
And they're desperate for that dowry because they now know, I think that with enough observation, because Finch was around for a solid year plus the mourning period, they waited a year and a half almost to get married. So I think that they by that time
Which
understood the
wasn't
financial
necessarily
situation.
that unusual for back then. I mean, it was a long engagement for sure, but not
Yeah,
not
people had
that.
long engagements, but usually long engagements are because, for example, if Colin would have come out and admitted feelings for Penelope when she was not old enough to
Yes, they would have had
enter
long
the
engagement.
marriage
Yeah.
mark, they would have gotten engaged but had a long engagement until she was of age and felt ready.
Yes.
But long engagements usually happen if it's two consenting adults. Long engagements usually happen due to a money situation, due to the marital bans, like the contracts not being agreed upon.
Yeah.
That taking a long time because your lawyers dealt with that. The lord of the family,
yes,
the man of the family, and the solicitors. It's kind of like having a prenuptial agreement, really. And figuring out, oh, we're going to give this land and give this much money. And, oh, but I want more than that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes long engagements occurred because of a death in the family, because women had to go into mourning. You couldn't have a marriage if it was a close family member, like a father, a brother, whatever. And they didn't have anyone to do to fully finalize the marriage contract and stuff with Archibald being passed.
Yeah. And so, I mean, because you weren't allowed to get married while you were in mourning, were you? Well, you weren't supposed to. It was frowned upon. It was seen as like a mar on. I mean, the Featheringtons do what the Featheringtons do, but it would have.
They only were in mourning for 10 months. They didn't do the full year.
Yeah.
Because they showed up at the first bowl of the season.
I think that
10 months.
I think the minister would have actually said no because you're in mourning and things had to be done the correct way, unless they were like, hey, actually, we might have sullied the lands a little bit early. We need to get married fast. Even
sullying the lands, a priest or a preacher minister would not do it. They'd have to elope and go to like Gretna Green or something.
That's what I'm saying. Like there were ways around it, but like it wasn't going to be acceptable no matter how they spun it. So I think that they did have a long engagement.
I think Finch, much like Colin, recognized that Philippa was a little invisible. She wasn't as invisible as Penelope. She wasn't a completely glass child, but she was not given the attention like Prudence was, and she was invisible. And I think Finch wanted to give her what she wanted, and that's why he remained devoted.
I'm just gonna pause for a moment. Yeah, definitely. I don't think she was as much glass child and as invisible as Penelope, but I think that Philippa also spent a lot of her life being overlooked as being the second child, a little bit in the Benedict of it all. Like, and I think like Benedict, I think that Philippa thought that suited her just fine for most of it. I don't think she ever wanted all the full attention on her. I think she liked being able to skate past and not have all the pressure on her, because she's not the kind of personality that would necessarily want that kind of pressure. I think she likes doing things in her own manner, in her own time frame. I think she liked being able to pick Finch even if he wasn't the most advantageous match, because she didn't care about advantageous. She cared about someone who was going to love her, even though it wasn't something that she necessarily grew up knowing. I think she just knew the feeling when she felt it, and she wasn't going to let that go. But Daddy, I love him.
The cheese conversation, okay? The cheese conversation between the two of them and her realizing like he does see me, right? Yeah. He does see me is very similar to the mirror scene where Penelope's hearing, oh, Colin has been kind of observant. He has noticed me. He has seen me, you know, and then she gets kind of annoyed at how much he does see her as the whistle down of it all kind of happens. But Finch and Philippa having that conversation about cheese was that moment for her. Like,
well, I feel like now that we're mentioning it and it's sort of on the same train of thought, how could they have so many in-depth conversations about cheese but not talk about the cheese pooling in his pants?
Wow.
Like,
why are you calling that cheese?
String cheese.
Because, and Lauren McDonald said this himself too, and her name just flew right out of my brain. Harriet Keynes, thank you. He said, like, their joke about that whole thing was that he was such a king of consent that he wasn't even going to go that far until she
was ready.
Well, no, until she initiated, because he wanted to know she knew what was going on. Because as much as he loved her, and this, I'm going further than the little conversation that occurred in this interview, because that was just a chuckle of, he was waiting because he didn't want to do something she didn't want to do, or she didn't even know what was, because men of the ton understood women didn't learn these things.
I don't feel like he had an education at all.
I don't think
he was visiting brothels.
His parents.
I don't think
he was visiting brothels at all. I think he kind of knew what he wanted.
That's what I meant when I said an education. He didn't get the Colin special.
He didn't I was gonna be like, he didn't go to the courtesan academy.
No.
Right? He didn't go to courtesan academy, but I still think, like, when your body does things,
I think
some of it's instinctual.
I think his dad and maybe older brothers, if he has them, had talked him through the logistics of it, but I don't think he'd actually done the logistics of it
I don't think he'd done the logistics.
I think he was a virgin person. Danky, I could see him still visiting brothel potentially. I don't think he's the kind to ever to stray.
I don't know if he visited brothels, because he seemed pretty vanilla.
Yes.
In the bedroom.
Yes.
Like, Finch and Philippa, with no education whatsoever, were already in a position that is not like
entry level. Well,
I mean, not entry level. Thank you for putting it that way. Not entry level. Whereas Danky and Prudence were literally like still in 8th grade health class.
Yes, learning how to put the boat on the banana. I think that's because I think that
just made my jaw hurt.
Sorry, I think it's because Finchy and Philippa had that long engagement, that they had the foundation of a really solid friendship, and they had a lot more trust between them by that point. And I think that I think that Prudence and Danky will both get there, but I think that they were so invested in aesthetics of it all that I don't think that they had built up that emotional connection the way that both of her siblings did. And as we see it developing towards the end, that is when we see them being a little bit more passionate, where Danky, he's like, oh, my wife's not smacking my hand away with the same, like, he misses that kind of
same fervor. Like, I miss her smacking my hand. Yeah.
Like, I love that most men would be like, oh, like, how dare you, like, you're a wife, like, be subservient to me. And he's like, I miss my wife beating me around, like, because he values that strength.
He loves that part of her. Yes, he loves that part of her. And I think that's true love, when you can look at something that a person believes is a flaw of theirs, and I'm not talking anything toxic here. No, I'm talking your normal healthy, everyday flaws, your healthy flaws.
My talkativeness. Like, my boss said, oh, Stephen must be loving your inability to talk for the last few weeks. And I said, hey, some people actually like their spouses. I don't know if you know that.
But like, I think true love is vibing with a person, and something they consider a flaw in themselves, you just find utterly adorable. So I think that Finch finds Philippa utterly adorable. And I think that Dankworth finds Prudence utterly adorable. And I think that Philippa finds Finch utterly adorable. And I think that Prudence finds Dankworth like a bug, but like a ladybug. And like, she doesn't know what to do with it. It seems weird. She wants to smack it away, but he's so cute.
She's never had a ladybug, and she's like, what is this feeling? It makes me feel fluffy. fluffy. I don't like that feeling. But it feels kind of nice. Like maybe I just let the bugs stay here for a little while. We'll see what happens.
And I
So
just, yeah, I think they have an affinity for each other. But I think that Finch and Philippa, the reason we see them, on level 2, level 3 business is because when you have that emotional connection with somebody and you're both kind of entering into that era
yes.
of time in your life, exploration isn't taboo. It isn't scary. It's
But
fun.
you
It's
know
like,
how we
ooh,
talk
let's
about
try this.
you know how we talk about one of your favorite moments. You've talked about two of your favorite moments, but one of them you talked about many, many, many episodes ago. So one of your favorite moments that you just talked about was how, the camera pans in and we see Danky. Finchy and Philippa holding hands. And then what do we see in season 3? We see
That was
Penelope
season
and
3.
no, I'm sorry. In season 3, once Penelope and Colin get together,
They
sitting
hold hands.
on that settee together, holding hands inappropriately in a room in front of everyone. But Penelope has seen her sibling do this, and that's what I'm saying about how I think
But I
that
think her and Colin have always held hands. Like,
yes,
we don't see it that much until season 2. But I think that that's just a
but
show of connection with
I think
them.
they're normalizing physical connection
Affection.
within the eyes of the ton, because I mean, even we see Anthony be so cheeky stealing kisses with his wife, and it's things that just aren't done in the ton, is being physically affectionate with your spouse. Because
Finch having his hand on Philippa's
yes, tummy,
belly after the
yes,
ton knows she's pregnant. You are not supposed to talk about pregnancy.
yes,
You're not supposed to say the word pregnant.
acknowledge, yeah, it was
You are not
taboo,
supposed to acknowledge it. So him
absolute
having
taboo.
his hand rubbing her belly.
Yeah,
I mean, if this would have been a soiree of the queens, they would have been kicked out.
yeah.
They'd have been like,
I
"You
think
got
the
to go."
queen would probably actually have a wee bit of a soft spot for Finchy because he is just that
I think
wholesome.
everybody has a soft spot for
Yeah.
Finchy because he's wholesome. I
But
think everybody, I don't know of anyone who doesn't like him.
and it's not to say that I don't love Dinky and Prudence. It's just different. But what I'm saying is Finchy and Philippa, for me, set the precedence of how to have a healthy relationship and how to start healing from generational trauma and generational lack of love in the house. Because I don't really know
But and I think it also really shows because we do talk a lot about Bridgerton and trauma and how there is so much like I don't know if Shonda Rhimes intended for this to use these different traumas to allow us to see all these different traumas and how they play out. But you can even see how a traumatic household creates 3 different dynamics.
Yes.
Like Penelope is a bit more scrappy and a bit more resourceful and a bit more headstrong. I mean, you don't see it. Her family doesn't see it, but she's growing. She created a business for herself. She created money for herself. She did the things for herself. Like she fully entered her masculine. And I think that Prudence didn't fully enter her masculine because she truly expected some man would want her because of her beauty.
Yes.
Because she'd been told she's beautiful by her mother. I'm not saying you're not Bessie Carter. I'm saying that Prudence believed she was way more beautiful than Prudence actually was. Right? She was no Edwina.
No.
She had her own beauty. She had her own beauty, but I think in Prudence's mind, I think that was the diamond every season.
I think that Prudence became a lot more exceptionally beautiful once she was married to Danky because it kind of wiped the scale off of her face. Because, like, as we've said in the past, and I was talking about this in our Bridgerton group with Anne and maybe Stephanie, or I can't remember who it was. Someone in our group. I was talking in one of the posts that you made recently, or maybe someone made. I don't remember. My week has been pretty full on. But we were
You've had a full week. You're good.
Yeah, we were talking about my literally brain just went blank.
We were talking about nothing.
Literally, it's gone. I don't even.
Prudence softer, Prudence softening.
No, we were talking. Someone posted about Penelope's outfits and how season 1 outfits were actually really decent. It was the yellow
and season
daisy.
2, the daisy, that was Anne, that daisy dress, because I was like, I've always said this is my favorite dress of hers.
And then I was talking to, I think it might have been Tours in Bath. My brain's
Clary.
Thank you. So I think it was her who I was talking to about this, and I was talking about how season 1 and 2, Penelope's outfits were actually stunning. What the difference was how she carried herself when she went into season 3. It wasn't necessarily that the outfits were any better. They did fit better. They were a bit more tailored. Her hair was obviously styled a little bit differently. It was the makeup, but for me, it was the way that she carried herself with confidence. And that's the difference between
Because she hates
Prudence.
yellow.
Yes. Well, no, I think it was more to do with the fact that she got to choose her outfits for herself. So she finally felt
Yeah.
confident that she was presenting herself rather than her mum presenting her because she didn't want to be represented by her mum. She
But
wanted to be a representation of herself. And so I think that Prudence, in season 3, once she's married, is starting to actually come into her own, find her power as a wife, find her power as a sister and an ally to her sisters rather than a like an enemy against them. Like they were sisters, but they were frenemies as well. Like they were always an obstacle to her getting what she wanted, which was to
mm-hmm.
be the heir of the mama. So I think that in taking away that those barriers that were making her combat against her sisters, or they might take season 1, they might take the male that I want to marry away from me if I allow them to be close to me. Season 3, we're all competing to have the first child. They have all these things against them, and I think that where her softness has finally come
Well,
in is
honestly,
finding her place in her family that she has created, not fulfilling the role that Portia created for her.
right. And I think that also, if we look at coming into season one, which we know is her third, and so the second season is her fourth, and then she married after the fourth season, and her mother tried to entangle her with a cousin.
Yes.
Like coming
Cousin
into
Jack.
coming into that season, we're meant, like, we're given the impression that Prudence is the favorite, right? Because Portia says her waist can be the size of an orange and a half like mine, but what if all of her attention is negative because that's how she put Prudence down? Like, you should have had an offer by now. This is your third year. Like, she's not actually saying those things, but she's saying those things. Like, you have to cinch in your waist more. You have to,
Yeah.
this corset, there's something wrong with the way you look. That is why you're not getting a man. And that's kind of the vibe we get with Penelope. Like, you're not getting a man because of your look as well, but it's a different way. Like, Philippa is like a mix of the two. She's soft line, she's curvy, but not too curvy.
Yeah.
And she's tall and statuesque, not as tall as Prudence, but tall enough. Like, she's the mix, and she gets an admirer first. And I think that, like, that burns not only Portia's toast, but
Bessie
Prudence's
Carter's
toast.
dad he looks German descent.
He's Carson from Downton Abbey.
No, I know, but is he of German descent?
He's English.
Well,
I don't know if he's German descent. I don't know. I just know that he's English.
I don't know. She just looks like
Jim Carter. Carter is not a German name, I don't think. He's from Yorkshire.
Imelda Staunton is.
Imelda's the greatest actress of all time to help me hate someone as much as I did in
Yeah. Irish heritage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. But for some reason, yeah, I just thought that Bessie Carter looked a bit German. Tall, beautiful.
Well, I mean, her parents
features.
have, like, if we're going to talk about how hot is a height difference.
Yeah.
Like, he and Imelda, I just had his name filed.
Jim Carter.
Jim Carter. Yeah, Jim Carter and Imelda Staunton have almost a Colin Penelope vibe with their height difference. So, Bessie is beautiful, but she's that unique blend of the two of them. Yes. Like, you can see him and you can see her. She can't deny her parentage
but
whatsoever.
I think where her beauty comes out is once she finds her happiness and her place within her family. And I think that the demeanor changes and her outfits soften. Instead of her trying to emulate Portia, I think she finally is coming into her own and finding her own style. And like, it's like trying to put on someone else's jacket. It just doesn't quite
Portia,
fit right. It
yeah.
just isn't really the right style for her. It just doesn't sit quite right. But when she finally comes into her own with her husband, with her pregnancy, with her siblings, and finds that she can just be Prudence, she doesn't have to be Portia 2.0, that is where her beauty starts to really shine because she's got a husband who's lifting her up as herself, not as her mother's daughter.
I think that Portia created competition in her home as a narcissistic parent, as a,
Mm,
emotionally immature parent. I think she created competition. I think this is not a love is not finite Eloise home. This is
yes.
there's only so much of me that can go around, and I
Yes.
only have enough attention for one kid at a
Yeah.
time. And honestly, the only part of Portia's life we see her in is desperately trying to get Prudence married off because
Mhm.
she's already in year 3 when we meet her.
Mhm. I think
So
that
I think that a lot of the focus was on Prudence. I think Prudence loved that. I think there's always a competition amongst the sisters, and it's all of them are trying to get their mother's attention because she doesn't have help from Archibald. She's doing it all, and that can be
so
very hard on a
with
mother.
wrapping up this episode, do you think that in season 4 we are going to see, because I mean, it's really hard. I haven't done enough research on narcissism to know how much kind of healing can come out of it. But obviously we are seeing Portia heal. I think we're still
Mm-hmm.
going to get schemy
Healing can
Portia.
happen. I
I
mean, how
think
do I see him compared to even a year ago?
I think that we're going to get schemy Portia in some variety next season, but I think it will be in more of a healthy.
Oh,
But I think she's always going to be
I
a
think
little
you
bit.
can take the narcissist out of the girl, but not the scheme. Like Portia that's what she knows. That's what she grew up
Yes,
with. I think some of those
I think we
some of
kind of
those
love her
negative
for it.
coping, and that's true in all healing. Like we learn coping mechanisms as children that
Hmm.
don't work for us as adults, but we still rely on them because they
Yes,
are like rote.
yes,
That is the pathway that was carved into our brain.
yeah.
And as you heal, there are a lot of times that you can choose to go a different path, but there are just sometimes that you're triggered enough or a situation just lends itself where you end up using that old coping
I
mechanism.
think we're going to see Portia trying to scheme between Colin and Penelope a little bit next season to try and sway things in her favor. And I think it's going to come back and bite her in the caboose. And I think it's
I
going to
think
be
they're going to
really
be the
funny
best
to
parents.
watch.
Well, you're not there yet. You have a 4-year-old, but eventually, like 6, 7, 8, the kid
Hmm.
starts running in between the parents, trying to get a yes, especially
Hmm.
if parents are separated, separate rooms, outside, inside, whatever.
Hmm.
Trust me, I was one of those kids. And I've seen it with like fostering all my nieces and nephews. They always hit that age
Yeah,
where they want
I
something.
remember
One
doing it.
parent
Yeah,
one parent says no, you go to the other parent, or they say go ask your other parent, wanting
yeah,
the other parent to be the bad guy, and you're
yeah.
like, well, they said to ask you, so it's totally up to you. And they're like, well,
Hmm.
they said to ask me. They must want, maybe they don't want you to do it. No, 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 no. They said it would be okay if you said it was okay, like
Hmm.
manipulating the
I
wording of it.
remember.
So I think they're gonna have that experience with Portia first
Yes.
before their kids are at
Yeah.
that age. They're going to be the best parents for that. They're going to be like, nope, I'm going to talk to your
Oh, you
mom.
know
And the kids are going
what?
to be like, ugh.
Anytime Portia wants new outfits, she's gonna have to go through Colin. This is
Yes.
maybe this
Anytime
is
she wants anything.
maybe this is why Varley was pulling out her old outfits because Colin's like, you've had enough, Portia. How about you just go get tailored what you've already got? I wonder if that's why
Um,
Varley was pulling out the in that still image,
oh,
pulling
that
out
would
one of
be so funny.
Portia, you're spending beyond your means. You need to cull it back for the sake of the family. Go tailor what you.
Or something like do something with the clothing you already have before we buy new
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So she gives it to Varley.
Mm-hmm. This would
Like I
actually
did
make a
something
lot
with
of
it.
sense. All right.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
I actually feel like we did really, really well. I mean, we didn't talk about I don't feel like we got as much Finch like I don't feel like we got as much Danky and Prudence as what we did. But obviously we've had now 3 seasons of Finch and as opposed to one of Danky. So obviously there is going to be a big difference. But I do feel like we actually really we had a few tangents. I feel like we did pretty well considering I've had 2.5 hours of sleep and a
I
mouthful of
only got three and a
stitches.
half. Yeah.
So I think we were pretty well behaved. For today, gentle listeners, we will leave it there and continue on next week's episode. If you have anything in particular you would like us to cover or any Bridgerton knowledge you would like to share, please head to our Facebook page, The Ladies Bridgerton. And if you're If you are enjoying our podcast, please remember to click like, subscribe. My tongue is numb and tired.
Your tongue's still numb, so.
If you are enjoying our podcast, please remember to click like, follow, or leave comments on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, as it greatly supports our pod to grow. And for those who have recently subscribed to our Patreon or our Buy Me a Coffee page, we had both.
We thank you.
We now also have a new subscriber onto our Patreon, our second subscriber, which is Sarah. And a huge, huge shout out to Sarah, because she has been one of our absolute OG original. She writes what do you call
fanfics?
Fanfics.
She writes on. Yeah, go read her stuff on Archive of Our Own. She's done a few stories over there. I believe.
She's done some amazing stories. Fanfics aren't. Not
she did a kind of choose your own adventure that I still
love
haven't
that.
read. Well, it's not quite that. She did a story where there's like multiple. There's multiple outcomes.
Yes,
of
like a Goosebumps book.
different Deblings.
I love that. That's really cool. Okay, so big shout out to Sarah. Thank you for being our second subscriber. It means the absolute world to us. Shout out to Maria for being our my water Patty Snacks supporter of the day.
And OG Julia, the pod that dropped officially today, which is 6/14, should have your Bridgerton love story, and the video is scheduled to be uploaded on Monday.
Amazing.
I scheduled it it's going to be uploaded to Patreon just for our subscribers to be able to watch. That was my special gift.
For
the subscribers get to see their Bridgerton love story video, like us talking about it.
And what about the video clips of our voice notes from season 3 drop as we were first listening? Were those a subscriber only option, or is it
subscriber only option?
Amazing. Cool.
Yeah, for now. Like our subscribers get some exclusive content. We want to give them flowers and gifts, everything we can for supporting us. Because this is a joy, and I love doing it, but it takes time and it takes resources, and we thank you so much, much.
Pepple.
And I know you get me talking about something that doesn't segue well.
I'm sorry.
That's the problem. And thank you for listening to the musings of one mad woman and one post-surgery woman.
Definitely two mad women for sure. Yours truly, Tash the Kiwi.
And Lady Patty.